Hi, I'm Joe with Peak Performance. Today, we're going to change the coolant, which is also antifreeze. It's pretty straightforward, just a few simple steps. Really, anybody can learn how to do it. Start by making sure that the car's been off for a while and that your engine is cool. Remove the radiator cap by pressing down and turning it. You are releasing the pressure in the cooling system. Okay, you're going to have to get at the drain valve. So you have to determine if you need to raise the car up to get underneath. If you do, you can use a jack and jack stance. Never get under a car that is held up only by a jack. So, raise the car up with the jack, then set it on at least 2 jack stands. Always use jack stands. After all, it is your head. You can also use drive-up ramps with rear wheel chocks. Open the drain valve and coolant will begin to flow into the drain pan. While the radiator is draining, it's a good time to check the hoses and clamps of your heating and cooling system. Replace any cracked or worn out hoses and any rusty or loose clamps. Note how much fluid comes out of the radiator. That's how much fresh coolant you'll have to put in later on. Let all the coolant drain out, then close the valve. Carefully pour the used coolant into a container that meets regulations for safe disposal in your area. Then set it aside to dispose of later. All right, the next step is to flush your radiator and cooling system. You're gonna need a garden hose and your drain pan. With the drain valve closed, fill the radiator until it's full. Okay, that's enough. Hey, turn it off. Now, let's drain it again. Repeat the process until the water is clear with no coolant or rust visible. This might take a couple of flushes. Plain water will remove sediment from your radiator, but to get to the rust and scales of your engine and your hoses, use Peak Super Cleaner and flush. When you use this, be sure to follow the directions on the bottle and also your vehicle manufacturer's instructions. All this flush fluid must be disposed of the same way you did the coolant. If there's room in the container, you can add it to the coolant you already drained. When the drain water is clear, close the drain valve and lower the car. Now, you can move on to the next step, adding a fresh coolant water mixture. So, the coolant needs to be mixed with water for optimum performance. Normally, a 50-50 mix will give you antifreeze protection down to minus 34 degrees Fahrenheit. That's minus 36 Celsius. And boil over coolant protection up to 265 degrees, 129 degrees Celsius. In colder climates, you'll need lower temperature protection, so a mix of up to 70% antifreeze can be used. Regular water will do the trick, but you really should use distilled water to refill the system. Now, distilled water doesn't contain minerals which can dissolve and cause deposits and scales in your cooling system. Here's how you do a 50-50 mix. Your radiator is now empty, so start by filling it halfway with Peak Long Life Antifreeze. You probably can't see where halfway is on the radiator, so you need to estimate the amount of coolant you add based on the amount of fluid you drained out earlier. Add half this amount of coolant to the radiator. Then add an equal amount of distilled water and you'll have a 50-50 mixture. Then fill the half-empty coolant container with distilled water. This gives you a 50-50 mix in both the radiator and the container. Now you can fill the radiator the rest of the way with the 50-50 mix and save the rest for your next flush and fill. In a tightly sealed container, this Peak Long Life 50-50 mixture will be good for 5 years or 150,000 miles. If you don't want to mix your own, try Peak's convenient pre-diluted 50-50 mix, which is also great for topping off. For extra protection, use Peak Performance Radiator Anti-Rust Sealer and Protector, which helps prevent rust and corrosion and stop leaks. Next, we'll bleed the car's cooling system to remove any pockets of air. Leaving the radiator cap off to avoid pressure buildup, start your engine. You're going to let it run for about 15 minutes in a well-ventilated area until it reaches operating temperature. Turn on the heater and set it to hot. This circulates the coolant and any air that might be in the system, the radiator core and hoses. Now check the amount of fluid in the radiator. It may have gone down a bit. This is because you are releasing air that was trapped in the system, leaving more room for your coolant mixture. As the air bleeds out, you may get spitting or bubbling from the fill opening, but be careful, the coolant might be hot. Next, turn the car off and allow the engine to cool. Check the effectiveness of the coolant with a Peak antifreeze tester. Add more coolant or water as needed. Don't forget to check the coolant reservoir and fill it to the line with your 50-50 mix. To replace the radiator pressure cap, press down while you turn the cap. This is important. Make absolutely sure the cap is tight. Now, congratulations are in order because you are done. All right, just to recap. We made sure the engine was cool, carefully took off the cap, released the pressure, drained the coolant, and put it into a proper disposal container. We flushed the system, and once the fluid ran clear, we refilled the radiator with a 50-50 mix of peak performance antifreeze and distilled water. We left the radiator cap off and ran the engine to bleed the system to get rid of any air pockets and check the amount of fluid in the system. We let the engine cool, tested the antifreeze, added some if needed, replaced the cap, and we were done. By using Peak Long Life, you're good for 5 years or 150,000 miles. And that's all there is to it. Be sure to check us out at peakauto.com. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm Joe from Peak Performance. Thanks for watching.